Welcome to the Midlife Fulfilled podcast. Are you over 40 and ready to truly thrive? Well, on this podcast, we go deep on ways to thrive across the 5 pillars of midlife: health, fitness, career, relationships, and legacy. I'm Bernie Borges, midlife advocate, life coach, and your host. Subscribe now and get ready to thrive. Jack Madrid, welcome to the Midlife Fulfilled podcast, a maximum episode.
Always great to see you, Bernie.
Always great to see you, Jack. And boy, do I see you everywhere. Let me tee up our conversation for my listener. Jack, I am going to read your LinkedIn headline. I'm not going to read your entire bio, but your headline, because it's so telling. Your headline reads, industry leader, board director, executive coach, news anchor, podcaster, and wine columnist. And I happen to know, because this is how we met, you are the CEO of IBPAP, which is an organization in the Philippines where you are located. You are 12 hours ahead. It is 7 p.m. for me and 7 a.m. for you, very early. And you head up IBPAP, which is an association or an organization that's focused on ensuring that the Philippines remains competitive in the IT and business process management industry. And you've had an illustrious career. You've worked at many organizations, many of which are US-based organizations. And you talk about reinventing yourself. And Jack, I have to tell you, and I don't think this will surprise you, that I sometimes live vicariously through you because I see you globetrotting on LinkedIn with all your photos and on Instagram. And I've listened to your podcast. You are on the opposite side now in this podcast experience, because instead of being the interviewer, you're the interviewee. So all that to say, what makes you tick, Jack? Like, what motivates you to be this versatile individual in your midlife seasons?
Wow, that's a very loaded question, Bernie, but certainly one that I guess attempts to as I'm thinking about how I'm going to respond to that, one that really attempts to discover what really makes me tick and get up in the morning and do whatever it is that I do. I'd like to start with my energy. My energy is derived from other sources of energy. So I tend to seek people with the same level of energy and motivation as me, and that ultimately comes from what I would describe as curiosity. Because I don't like doing things over and over again. I find my joy in doing something for the first time, discovering it, playing with it, learning about it, including meeting new people, to be my primary driver. So whether in my personal life or at work, I like to initiate, experiment, and innovate with new things, new people, even with food and wine. It's always that knowledge that I'm going to discover something that I've never had before, that I've never experienced before, and that's kind of what keeps me going every day.
Okay. So as I look at what I know of your life from a career standpoint, and then I certainly know about your wine enthusiasm because you share that so openly, especially on Instagram. I've shared that with my wife many times. Look at this picture from Jack. Look at all those beautiful wines that he and his friends are enjoying. And so what I'm wondering, Jack, is how much of this journey that you have been experiencing has been planned versus just the curiosity sort of creating the opportunities that you have just embraced?
Wow, I love that question because I always say that, well, my answer is none of it. Um, Nothing has been planned. Uh, Bernie, I always remember one time I heard Steve Jobs addressing some people, saying that you can never connect the dots forward. They only make sense when you connect the dots backward. And when I heard that, I thought it just completely applied to the course that I had been at that point, which was quite a number of years ago. But even then, it was true, and it's even more true now, as more dots have emerged. But none of it is planned. But I can tell you that um, everything I would say that I've done, whether career or in my life, um, was almost meant to be, because where I am now, all the things I've done, all the mistakes I've made, all the some of the good stuff that I've done, are a result of learning from each of those dots, and the experiences that I learned on knowing what to do, and more often than not, knowing what not to do. So where I am now is just really a sum total of all of those dots and all of the things that I did in the journey so far. So none of it is planned. I'm not. I think I'm a pretty good planner, but the thing about plans is they often don't go the way you want them. So the key is really to. I mean, I have nothing against planning, but you need the agility, flexibility, just being nimble and flexible enough to adjust when plans don't go according to what you had imagined them to be.
Yeah. Well, to your point about planning, certainly in a business standpoint, we certainly have to do some planning. And I know that from a previous conversation we had probably a year and a half ago, so this is a year and a half old data. You, in your current role as CEO of IBPAP, you are planning some pretty aggressive employment numbers in the Philippines in the context of heading up IBPAP. And I'm just wondering how how do you deal with that kind of pressure? That's a lot of planning, that's a lot of forecasting. It's also a lot of people that are impacted by that. And so, and as I said, I watch what you post on LinkedIn and Instagram. You're very, very good at that. Wow. I mean, I wish I was one quarter as good at doing how you do that. And I see you speaking at events and sharing those plans. So, how do you sort of manage all of that? And then you also seem to be balancing that with fun, enjoyable activities outside of work, even though you have this big responsibility in your career. So, how do you balance the two?
Wow. I don't think about balance too much. Um, Bernie, I try to remain curious. I try to maintain, and that curiosity, I keep going back to that because it keeps me more open-minded. Um, Meaning that I feel I need to have the flexibility to change course whenever needed. I'm always open to the opportunity of learning something from every single conversation that I have, regardless of whether they are subject matter experts or just random people that I meet. I mean, I learn from every single conversation I have, whether it's in high level meetings or even on the golf course or at a restaurant, with servers and wine staff. There's always something. Someone will always have a perspective that I had never heard of, and so I think that kind of attitude and mindset uh, allows me to not let the daily pressure, get to me. It's a very visible role, as you probably have seen.
Yes.
But even with that, right? Even with all the media, almost daily reaching out, I don't pretend to know everything, and I don't have this air of certainty uh, when I speak or provide answers. I guess it's just my way of being. I mean, that's just really who I am, because I truly don't know the answer, especially in this age where technology is transforming everything we do at such an accelerated pace. One really cannot be too. I don't think one can be so sure-footed, especially now. And I guess I'm just being very open and honest when I say I really don't know the answer. Uh, I really don't. And what I try to do, talking about the goals that you had mentioned earlier about our industry's very ambitious goals. What I try to do there is I share the ownership of those goals. That's not just mine or my teams; it's the whole ecosystems. When I speak at membership meetings, we just had our annual membership meeting. I say we are just a collective voice for the industry, and that we, my team and I, would not exist, without our member organizations. And that was my, I guess, one of my ways of communicating that we are in this together. So don't just be a bystander. You have to do your share, and because this is for us. And so that sense of co-ownership, I think I've been able to uh, effectively rally our community, companies, leaders, and employees as well, getting them to co-own the industries and the country's goals.
Well said. Thank you. I recall that the first time we met, we were also in a podcast recording. I was hosting a podcast that wasn't mine. It was my previous employer, and I interviewed you. And sometime after that, you then became a podcaster. And I'd love to hear something about that journey. And I've listened to a few of the episodes that you've published on your podcast. It's called Promptly Speaking, right? Did I get that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And Jack, not surprisingly, you're a masterful interviewer. So tell me about this podcasting journey and what kind of fulfillment are you getting from that? You knew I was going to ask that question at some point in this conversation, right? This is the Midlife Fulfilled podcast.
Well, I'm happy you did, Bernie, because I will say this. I never imagined then that I would ever have, my own podcast. I've always been curious about it. I've always enjoyed the format as a listener. I listen to some, wine podcasts, uh, but to actually host was something I never thought I'd do. But in that particular conversation with you, I will say that was one of the drivers that emboldened me to actually do this, to do this podcast, when the opportunity came about. And the story of how IBPAP's podcast came about is in itself, one way to reveal how I am. And it came so unexpectedly. But I just want to say that conversation with you really, really motivated me because I enjoyed the conversation. It was very authentic, and that's really what I search for. I find myself very, again, it's part of this curiosity. I like learning, and because I do, I like asking questions rather than responding to questions. I mean, I can do both, but I really enjoy, being the one asking the questions. And so, everything that has happened since then, my own podcast, you know, which by the way led into my now weekly news show on technology. It was
Okay.
it was the producers who watched the podcast who said, "Hey, you want to do news?" So guess what? My news show is about, when I interview business leaders.
Wow.
Uh, yeah, so it's kind
And
of
that's
one.
not a podcast is that on television or digital or where's that?
Yes, it's on live TV
Okay.
every Thursday here in the Philippines. I touch on technology. and anything IT BPM related. And But most people these days watch it, watch it on YouTube.
Hey, I've got a hypothetical scenario that actually plays out in real life all the time, and I want to run it by you. You're a leader. Somebody on your team shares a hobby that they have. Let's say it's dancing. They go to a dance studio a couple of nights a week, maybe even on weekends, they go to competitions and they really love it. It's a passion of theirs. They eventually tell you that they really want to open up a dance studio. That's their dream. What do you do? If they open up a dance studio, they're going to leave you. You actually help them achieve their dream. You put together a plan with them. You coach them on that plan. You help them realize that dream. Why would you do that? Because that individual is going to be so loyal to you, so grateful to you, that they're going to help you grow along the way. And they're going to help you develop a succession plan to replace that individual after he or she has left you. This, my friend, is fulfillment centric leadership. When you lead your employees to personal and professional fulfillment, they give you their best work and they help your business grow. That is what fulfillment centric leadership is all about.
Sure. So, but going back into how I got to start the podcast, one of our member organizations, who was not a member when this happened, not yet a member, just said, I really want to be a member of IBPAP. And I asked him, what do you do? And he said he was a podcast production company. And I said, how does that become part of the industry? And why do you want to be a member? And he said, well, I produce podcasts for US podcasters. So they outsource it to me, to my company. I said, absolutely, you're part of this industry.
Yeah.
And then this thought just entered my head that, hey, you know what? Instead of the normal membership fee for IBPAP, why don't we just, exchange value? You can become a member and you give IBPAP a certain set number of episodes, not knowing what I would do with those episodes. But he readily agreed. We shook hands, and that gave birth to this opportunity. And I looked around the office and I said, okay, who's gonna host the podcast? And ended up being me. So I kind of had to come up with something. What am I gonna do? I'm gonna host this podcast. Who am I gonna interview? And in the beginning, nobody wanted to be on this, brand new podcast, because nobody knew what it was gonna be. But after one or two guests, happy to say I was lucky to find two people who were willing to be interviewed, and the rest is history, because now I have a wait list.
Oh, I'm not surprised. I'm not at all surprised because I've seen some of the guests, and they're prominent business people in your region. And so clearly, not surprisingly, it's a big success. So I'm happy for you. And I can tell that you're enjoying it, Jack. I knew that you would just be a natural at it. So I'm
Thank
really
you.
it's fulfilling to me for me to just see you enjoying that experience. So that's
Well,
terrific.
thank
That's
you.
terrific.
Thank you, Bernie.
Jack, I didn't read your bio, but I know you have worked for brands like Dell and Yahoo and MTV and others that are, they're American brands, but largely in the Philippines and probably in other regions as well, because I think you've kind of bounced around globetrotting a little bit. But there's an aspect of your life that I want to make sure we spend a few minutes on, and that is this wine connoisseur and your wine journey. I'm not even sure what words to use. I don't want to misrepresent it. So maybe I can just ask you to just kind of unpack that for us. What is it? And also why? Why do you do it?
Mm. Well, that's a great question, Bernie. Again, I go back to curiosity. Um, I've tasted wine for quite some time. It started out just socially, like most people. But when I had more time to pay attention to wine, I noticed something, which was certain people that I would drink wine with gravitated towards certain specific brands and labels that weren't very aligned to my own preferences. What I'm referring to is that certain people just like certain brands at certain price points, and I had almost no wine knowledge at that time, and I was just curious, why do I like certain wines that nobody else seemed to like. I didn't pay attention at that time to prices or brands, and it instilled this curiosity in me. So when I relocated to Vancouver, and was not working full time, I had time to study, uh, and spend more time satisfying this curiosity. So I enrolled in wine studies. WSET 3 was my first wine course. I skipped 1 and 2, went straight to 3, which was an experience in itself, but I survived and learned quite a lot of theory in terms of wine regions and history, types of soils in the different wine regions, the climate, and what grapes thrived in certain regions. And wow, it was much more than I ever thought, and I was hooked. And I don't consider myself uh, really a connoisseur. That word suggests certain things that maybe I don't see myself as. I'd really prefer being known as a wine student or a columnist, because I do write about wine.
Okay.
But this curiosity is what keeps me going, and I discovered that like most commodities, I guess, certain people just prefer certain brands, and their decisions as to what bottles to buy, what wines to order, are driven by perception, and which is often driven by price, which I don't subscribe to, and which is why I do blind tasting whenever I can. I taste wines, without knowing what they are, and I taste them side by side, or I try to uh, discover a wine and describe a wine and conclude what a wine is, tasting it blind. I have a lot of fun with that. It's like being a detective, and figuring out all the clues into describing and reaching a conclusion. The purpose of blind tasting for me is not getting it right. It's really the process of analyzing the appearance, the aromas, the flavors of a wine, and then drawing some conclusion. Of course, it's more fun when you get it right, but if I like my notes, and if the notes are accurate, then that gives me a lot of
And
lots of
and and
pleasure.
Jack, it seems to me, from at least from the photos that I see, that when you're doing it, it's a very social activity. You're clearly with other people, and you sure look like you're having a good time.
Yeah, well,
So tell me a
wine
little,
makes people happy, right?
yeah, right,
uh,
right.
it's a very social occasion. We typically get together a small group of 5 or 6, or occasionally even 10, get together, each bringing a bottle. uh, Sometimes we have a theme, so we bring wines that fit a certain theme, or pairing with the food that we're gonna have. We always have food, and when I'm around, they know that I would like to taste the wines blind, and they just give in to me, um, because I don't really drink alone. I do consider wine, the enjoyment of wine, to be partly social, because wines are to be shared. The wine itself and the experience of enjoying a wine, to me, is an opportunity to sharing the wine itself, and sharing the knowledge and the conversation and the entire context. And that's really what makes each and every bottle uh, memorable. There are times when I remember specific individuals uh, by the bottle that we we opened and
Yeah.
shared
Yeah.
on that occasion, more than the person itself, and then it comes back to me. Oh yes, and this is what we talked about, and
Exactly.
this
I was
is
going to
where
say
we
you
were.
probably remember the conversation as well. Yeah. Yeah. Um, I want to begin to get to a wrap, but I want to do it around this point that I know we'll have some conversation around. And that is that it is clear in this conversation that the theme of it is curiosity. You have mentioned this multiple times. And if we can get introspective here, Jack, as we look at ourselves in our midlife seasons, and I use the word seasons plural because I think we go through multiple midlife seasons. How powerful has curiosity been? You've clearly mentioned it multiple times in this conversation that it has been a driver for you. So maybe as we begin to wrap, let's end on that topic because that has been the central theme to this conversation. The role of curiosity in your life's journey, really.
Well, that's certainly the essence, I think, which is why I use the word. I find myself using that word many times, but funnily enough, Bernie, I don't think of it. It's not something I really need to think of because it's just there. When I wake up, I wonder, what's going to happen today? What am I going to do today? What buttons am I going to press? What lives am I going to touch? What am I going to learn? But it's just there without even thinking. I'm a curious person. I'm going to do this. I don't even really plan my days that well, but it's more of the excitement and the feeling of looking forward to. Maybe the word is anticipation. Anticipating what new stuff will happen today. Like how when I woke up early this morning, how will my conversation with Bernie, be? How will it be different from the first conversation I had years back? And it's the same, but it's different because each day is different. Like each bottle of wine is different, even if it's exactly the same bottle, the same vintage, because context changes. All the things I seem to like,
Yeah.
even the game of golf, which we haven't talked about, it's always different. Every
Yeah.
round, every shot is always different. So, I think knowing that something different is going to happen is probably what drives me. But the key quality that I'd like to share is really, I think that of being open and willing to learn something new, willing to be corrected, willing to be proved wrong, which I truly am. Which is why I don't, I don't let preconceptions or any kind of bias, which I do have some, affect my that kind of flexibility
Mhm.
to try something new or to learn something new. So it's just being very open, and that's kind of connected.
Yeah.
It's very very much integrated into curiosity.
I would add just observing my interactions with you that you're also a very optimistic individual, Jack. That you go into, you say you wake up every day wondering, what am I going to experience today? But my sense is that you do that with a sense of optimism, not a sense of pessimism. Oh, what problems am I going to encounter today? No, I think you wake up and go, how am I going to touch people today? What's going to happen today with, again, this sense of optimism. And I think that that is so healthy and so inspiring for me, and I'm sure for the listener, especially as we go through our midlife seasons and we can have ups and downs. That sense of curiosity with an optimistic lens is very healthy, and I just want to thank you for sharing that with me and the listener. Any closing thought on this before we wrap?
Well, Bernie, thank you for that insight. I just like curiosity. I don't think about my optimism, but I guess I am without. now that I think about it. But I wouldn't be any other way. I think life is too short to be anything else but not be full of wonder. And I think that's another way to look at it. I think the curiosity comes with the gives way, or provides the optimism. I think they kind of go together, because if one were not optimistic, then I probably would not be as curious as I am. So I think they go hand in hand.
I
And
agree.
so it's almost a cliche, but each day is different from the next, and just max it, whether at work or in your daily life or your relationships. I think true fulfillment, really comes on a daily basis, and not to overthink too much. There's too much stress in the world, too much bias, too much negativity, and I think
Yep.
we need to arm ourselves with energy, curiosity.
Optimism and hope. Absolutely. Jack, where can my listener connect with you and get into your world?
Well, I'm pretty easy to find. I'm on LinkedIn, Jack Madrid. I'm also on Instagram for more personal slices of what I do every day. That's more Instagram. Yeah, pretty much it. I live most of the time in Southeast Asia in Manila, but I spend some parts of the year in Vancouver, British Columbia.
Okay. Well, my listener knows that those two links will be in the show notes, so that don't be surprised if you have some new followers on Instagram and or on LinkedIn. So, Jack, I just want to thank you. I know that we had to coordinate to get this on the calendar, especially with our 12-hour time difference. And I thank you for being available so early in the morning and just for joining me for this episode and this conversation. And I just look forward to staying in touch and continuing to live vicariously through all of your activities, Jack.
Well, thank you for saying that, Bernie. It's always a pleasure. I also follow you avidly, and every single conversation is very enjoyable. I also love the joy you find in this stage of your midlife season. I learned something new.
Wonderful, Jack. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bernie.